back you up just a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
Hmm? Ah! There we go. Probably shouldn't scream live on camera.
I see the name.
Good evening, everybody. If we could take your seats, we'll get started in just a second. Thank you for joining us tonight. Please bear with me as I do introductions as I caught the latest cold going around. My name is Heather Cole. I'm president of the Wilson Area Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Government Affairs Committee of the Wilson Chamber, we welcome you to night 2 of our candidate forum. Elected by us, city, county, and state officials have a tremendous job to do and are responsible to our businesses as well as our community. We offer these forums that you can hear from the candidates running and make an informed decision on election day. We are proud to offer this forum in conjunction with the Wilson Herald. Thank you to Cherry Creek Media for providing the live broadcast on 660 Keys News Radio and the Williams County for hosting the forum. Thank you to the Wilson Regional Economic Development Corporation for your support in sponsoring this event. A couple quick things before I bring up tonight's moderator. As a reminder, the forums held this week are for contested races in the general election on November 6, 2018. Last night, we heard from candidates for House of Representatives, 4 candidates for 2 seats, and Senate, 2 candidates for 1 seat in the North Dakota State Legislature. You can still find a live stream for this forum online at thewilsonherald.com. Tonight, we will see candidates for the County Commission, State's Attorney, as well as sheriffs. All races have 2 candidates with 1 seat. I I do want to mention that the Williams County website, williamsnd.com, has more election information such as voting precincts, districts, and polling locations, as well as absentee ballot applications. Our moderator for tonight is Jamie Kelly. Jamie Kelly has worked with newspapers around the Midwest and on the East Coast for more than 15 years. Jamie is currently the managing editor of the Wilson Herald, a position he's held since August 2016. He lives in Wilson with his wife, Emily Johnson. Thank you, Jamie, for taking the time to moderate our candidate forums for us. Please join me in welcoming Jamie.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you so much to the Williston Area Chamber of Commerce and Williams County for hosting this. This is a really important evening. We have some fantastic candidates for very important races, very important seats. We'll start out with the candidates for County Commission. Districts 1, 3, and 5 are up for election this year. The format tonight will be the same for all of our candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute to introduce themselves, and then based on a random draw, we'll ask each pair of candidates the same question. So, District 1 will have a question. Each of them will get 1 minute to respond. The first person to answer will also get a 30-second rebuttal if they choose to use that. And then we'll go to District 3, District 5, and so forth. So, our candidates this evening are for County Commission seat District 1, Bo Anderson and Bram Lutz. For County Commission District 3, Wayne Aberle and Corey Hansen. For County Commission District 5, Linda Meyer and Barry Ramberg. So we'll start with Barry. If you wanted to introduce yourself, you have 1 minute. The timer is Rachel Richter-Lordman. She is going to be holding up signs when you have 30 seconds left, and then this lovely red sign when you have no more time left. We won't cut your mic, but please do try to keep to the time.
I'm Barry Ramberg, District 5, I guess. Born and raised in Tioga. I'm currently on the portfolio commissioner for social services, emergency services, park, and Northwest Youth Assessment Center. Owned my own business for 27 years and married with 3 kids, 6 grandkids.
Linda?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Linda Meyer. I want to thank you, Jamie, for moderating this forum. I live in Tioga, North Dakota on the family farm that I moved back to 8 years ago. I'm married. I have 1 new grandbaby, and I'm very involved with Tioga in the theater, and I just joined the Women's Auxiliary and Homemakers, and I guess my family's been in this county for 100 years, and so my roots run very deep in what's going on, and I'm very excited with that progress that could happen and will be happening in the next 10 to 20 years. Thank you.
Corey?
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Chamber, the Economic Development Herald for putting this on. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. My name is Corey Hansen. My wife and I, Jody, are lifelong Williams County residents. We've raised our family in Williams County. I have a bachelor's degree from St. Cloud State University. When I graduated there, I moved back to Williston. I became the superintendent of recreation. I also worked for School District 1 as the activities director and facilities and transportation, so I've got quite a bit of experience working with local governments and entities. Currently, I work for MMI Excavation, which is a dirt company in the oil field. I also operate the family farm east of Williston with my parents, Marty and Wanda Hansen. I have a history of giving, and one of them that I'm most proud of in Williston is I've been on the volunteer fire department for 21 years. I attained the rank of deputy chief, which is the highest rank that a volunteer can get in our volunteer system. So I wish to continue my service to the community and serving as the next District 3 Williams County Commissioner.
Wayne?
Thank you for all coming, and I'd like to thank the Chamber, Jamie Kelly, and also the Herald for sponsoring this event. I'm Wayne Averly. I've been County Commissioner for 8 years. I moved to Williston 40 years ago, and my wife has taught in the Williston School District for 33 years before retiring. I have one son here in Williston, and his wife, one grandson. My son is a sergeant with the North Dakota Highway Patrol, and I presently am president of the Load Pass Permit System, which oversees the counties and the townships for issuing permits for loads in the different counties. And I also am on the board of directors for the North Dakota Association of Counties. Thank you.
Brom?
Yes, hello, can you hear me? My name is Brom, B-R-O-M, Lutz, L-U-T-Z. I'm running for County Commission District 1. I'd like to thank, obviously, the Herald and the Red Sea and the Chamber and Keys Radio for hosting us all tonight. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. I'm a former Navy veteran and police officer. I moved out here in 2007, approximately, when my mom and dad, when I retired back to North Dakota. My mom and dad are both from here. My mom's from Williams County. My dad is from Hettier County. And when they moved back out here, we followed in suit and ran into a couple of my uncles who needed some help up here in Williams County with a couple of their ventures. So I started with them, and I've been here ever since. Moved my wife out here. My daughter was born here in 2012, and we have one more on the way that's due in November, which is exciting. I'm currently the managing director for BEI, which is an energy infrastructure company that used to be my uncle's. I'm watching the time. And I'm also the VP. I'm the VP of the board of directors for the Trenton Fire Department. I'm also on the API board of directors and American Legion. Thank you.
And Bo?
Good evening. My name is Bo Anderson. I'm running for District 1 County Commission, third generation farmer and rancher. My wife, who's in the crowd here tonight, of almost 10 years, and we have 4 children ranging in the last, basically they're 4 years apart, so they're all very close. I have a bachelor's degree in agriculture education. I taught high school VOAG for 4 years, and then I taught up at Wilson State College for 9, instructing in adult farm and ranch management. So, very diverse background. I spent 9 years as a board member for Round Prairie Township. So I got to sit through the first boom, and I see it appears to be extremely busy yet again. Just on the way in tonight, it was pretty impressive to see the traffic. So thank you folks for all coming out, and thanks everybody on the radio, and we look forward to the discussion tonight.
All right, we'll get started with questions. I did a random draw just a moment ago, and the order for District 1 for the first question will be Bo and then Brom. Again, each of you will have a minute, and then Bo will have 30 seconds, and then we'll switch that the next time around. So the first question, and I should point out that some of these questions are going to be the same for all 3 districts, and some will be different based on the questions we collected from the public and also the Government Affairs Subcommittee came up with. In your opinion, what are the fundamental professional responsibilities of an individual holding the position of Williams County Commissioner, and how might your approach differ from that of your opponent?
So fundamental responsibilities, first and foremost, we're tasked with dealing with issues, but we're elected officials, and we're here to hear the voice of our constituents. So the folks that are interested in voting for me, or folks that even don't vote for me, that's my job to make sure that we're doing the best we can with the dollars that we receive and to provide the services that we need to for our county. So fundamentally, I feel that it's my job to do the best that I can and then work as a team with the rest of the board members along with employees of our county to do the best that we can.
All right, Brown.
Well, I guess fundamentally our responsibilities as a county commissioner is to keep in mind that our responsibility is to our voting public and obviously to the citizens of Williams County. And to keep in mind that we represent them, and to be very well informed. Don't forget to ask questions, talk to the public, get their information on what they feel is important to them. So when things are approached or brought in front of the county commission, we should be well informed to make good decisions for positive, responsible growth for the market and for our county.
Though you have the option of a 30-second response if you want to take it.
Oh, I think we both hit it.
All right.
Thanks.
Then we'll move to District 3. We'll start with Wayne and then Corey. So the question for District 3 is the same. In your opinion, what are the fundamental professional responsibilities of an individual holding the position of Williams County Commissioner, and how might your approach differ from that of your opponent?
Well, I don't know if it'll differ much, but we have a responsibility to the public and to be open and available to the public at all times and answer the questions that they have. And also, not just attend the county commission meeting, but also solicit funding from the legislature and go to meetings in Bismarck, try to get funding back here for our roads and for the counties. And also work with human resources here and hire well-qualified people to run the county and keep everything moving smoothly.
All right. Corey?
I think one of the basic fundamental responsibilities, and it comes down to one word, is listen. Listen to not only the public who is elected and put us here, but also the people that are working for the county and doing all the work for us. So listening, hearing what they have to say, and then coming back and making decisions with those things. Not every decision is gonna be agreed with, but I think as long as people can be heard and their points are brought to the board, that's the main responsibility. And of course, the fiduciary responsibility of the board to make sure that the county is not going broke.
All right. Wayne, do you have a...
No, that's fine.
All right. And then for District 5, we'll start with Linda and then Barry. And again, it's the same question. So Linda, in your opinion, what are the professional responsibilities of an individual holding the position of Williams County Commissioner, and how might your approach be different from your opponents?
I think fundamentally, my first responsibility is to District 5. And District 5 will differ from the other 4 districts. From that point, then you take that information that you receive from your residents or constituents, and you apply that to the board when they get together to make decisions. I do think that communication is huge. I'd like to actually go out and go to the township board meetings, and I'd like to actually go to the township meetings and find out what's going on in the areas that I would be serving in District 5. And I think fundamentally I am very different from Barry in that I do look at the big picture when I look at what's going on in our county, and I try to break it down into if this is happening here, what's going to happen here, and a cause and effect. So, but my first responsibility is to District 5, and then I will go to the board with that.
All right. And Barry?
Well, it would be basically the same. I mean, you have to have accessibility, you know, you have to listen to your people in your district, and I agree, District 5 is, I mean, the county is important as a whole, but being from District 5, you tend to, your ears out a little bit harder for them. Being able to come up with different ideas or ways of, you know, instead of just doing it the same way all the time, you know, we gotta have new plans in place, not to spend ourselves into a hole. Just being fairly conservative and open-minded and listening.
All right. And Linda, you have the option. Okay. All right, we'll move back to District 1, and this time Brom will have the chance to go first. The question is, The agricultural community can, at times, be at odds with oil and gas, especially over the use of resources such as gravel, water, and roads. District 1 is almost 50% agricultural land. What is your philosophy as it relates to the coexistence of farmyards and tractors alongside water trucks and wellheads?
Well, basically, it also comes back down to just talking to the people in the district. And yes, our District 1 is very substantially rural. As far as tractor equipment using signs and well pads, that's something I would regard back to the farmers themselves and speak with people like Bo who do understand that aspect of it, since I don't run a farm myself. But I think that there is definitely a way to coexist and coincide with each other. It's all just comes back down to communication between the two, setting a platform where the two can actually sit, talk properly together, and figuring out the problems that are addressed. There will be problems on both sides, and there's disagreements on both sides that both need to be addressed. I think that could be easily figured out and agreed upon. I believe that it should be able to. I think that that could be definitely defined easily if just sit down and talk about between the two.
Okay, Bo?
So the last 7 to 10 years has been proof positive that agriculture and oil can coexist together, even though there was a lot of butting heads for many years. So my primary philosophy, especially when we worked with township issues and agriculture and the oil industry, was let's sit down, let's talk, and let's work together. Let's come up with reasonable ideas that we can maintain our township roads together. Let's come up with a plan and let's follow it. And if there's any issues, let's just get together and talk about it, and it worked well. I feel that we can continue to coexist. The thing that everybody needs to keep in mind is oil wasn't put in the ground yesterday, and it doesn't have to come out tomorrow. Okay, and it's similar in the ag industry. We all just need to take a step back. It's all about public safety, making sure that the industries take care of themselves without causing public harm and any environmental damage.
All right. Ron, you have the option of 30 seconds.
No, I'm good, I concur. Good point.
All right. So, for District 3, Corey will have the chance to go first this time. The question is, the oil and gas production tax is an important funding mechanism for local entities. In the past, there have been concerns raised that local jurisdictions are not getting back a fair amount. What are your thoughts on the funding mechanism, and do you believe the current formula offers up a fair and equitable amount?
I guess my initial reaction is no. I don't believe the current formula is giving what it should back to the oil producing counties in North Dakota. And that needs to be explored at the state level and see if we can come up with a better formula as far as getting it back to the actual counties that are producing it. We all understand that there's an entire state there that's gonna benefit from the oil and gas and the extraction tax. But the part we have to get across to everybody in Bismarck is that the people living here are the ones that are dealing with the roads that we're trying to maintain, all the different things that come along with this oil and gas. It can be a very good thing, but we just gotta make sure everybody understands that.
All right. Wayne?
I don't feel that we're getting the proper amount of money back into the county that we should be getting, or the townships. I think there should be some type of formula, so a certain percentage of the oil produced in this county, the revenue from that should come directly back on a percentage, and also should be divided up, some of it just come back to the schools. So they wouldn't have to go down there every 2 years and fight over the oil production tax and worry that you're not gonna get anything, or it's gonna get worse than what you already have. We are getting some money from it, and it's helped some, and about the time you think you can rely on the money, the oil goes down, so your roads, you lose what you had built up for prior years, and all of a sudden you're back to square one again. And you have such a short time to spend the money that you're given, and it gets very competitive to improve the roads and anything you're planning on doing when you only have about a year to complete a project.
All right. Corey? For District 5, Barry will have the chance to answer first. District 5 has well pads, bulk tanks, the Hess facility in Tioga, and a majority of the county's wind turbines. What is your philosophy as it relates to the coexistence of rural residential and family farms alongside those bulk tank farms and the wind turbines?
Well, growing up where I did, if you know where, I grew up 4 miles south of Highway 2, right next door to Enbridge's Beaver Lodge facility, and a mile and a half from the Discovery Well. We ranched and farmed and trucked, worked in the oil field. I think it can get along well. There's room. Most people understand that well, for one thing, you can't deny access to someone else's minerals. You know, so you're gonna have to get along. And the industry in the past may have been a little short-sighted. They've changed. I mean, they're actually pretty good neighbors now. The wind farm, I mean, the wind farm seems to fit in well. I mean, they're right next to oil and gas. They're farming right around the bases of them. It all works pretty well. It's a pretty good fit for the puzzle.
All right, Linda.
Could you repeat the question?
Certainly. District 5 has well pads, bulk tanks, the Hess facility in Tioga, and a majority of the county's wind turbines. What is your philosophy about the coexistence of rural residential and family farms alongside the bulk tank farms and the wind turbines?
Well, you know, I grew up in the country, and right now I have, within a mile radius, I have 5, 6 pads. I can see the wind turbines from my yard. Hess is only 5 miles away. I think that the farming and the oil has coexisted for so long that there's always been a little bit of tweaks that they've had to go through. You know, I'm really not sure about the wind farms. I honestly I didn't see the need for them. We get enough energy out of our area. I didn't want to be able to look out in the front yard and look at them. They don't seem to be, I mean, it doesn't seem to be affecting the people up there. And as far as the oil pads, they're getting very good at putting the pads away from the family farms, which is a good thing. And they are being much more respectful of the easements. So that's a good coexist. I don't know about the wind farms. I was never a fan of them.
Okay. Barry, again, you have. All right. So we'll start again with District 1. Bo, you have the chance to go first. As one of 5 commissioners, what impact do you individually hope to have as a member of the Board of Commissioners?
Well, there's always the ability to work as a team, and that's first and foremost, but as one of 5 commissioners, my goal is to bring people to the commission or bring people to the county that can help us solve problems. I mean, if you look around the whole county, there's issues with school funding, there's issues with schools as far as the children that they're bringing in. We have jobs, we have all this stuff around here, and we're doing a good job, but my role or my thought for this county is we need to start communicating better. We need to start bringing these people that we have heads of school boards, we have heads of all these different agencies, whether it's townships, and we all need to get together at least a couple times a year at different venues and discuss the issues that are facing our county and find out the way to solve them and do the best that we can with the resources that we have.
Ron?
Thank you for the question. I think that something I'd like to achieve as a county commissioner, you know, better city-county relations, which they're good as they are. They're getting a lot better every year. I see that getting better and better. I'd like to help strengthen that. Land use, emergency health, and human services, all very strong things that need to be addressed. Roads and infrastructure, obviously, is something I'd love to be able to tackle and something that I can bring it to. I mean, realistically, we need more work on our roads, we need more buildings at this point. I think that the school funding is a big issue, and this is gonna be a giant legislative year for us, so I hope to work tightly with, as an elected official, we all have a responsibility to work tightly with our state reps as well, and the city, to make sure Bismarck is aware that we need more funds to come back here. There's a lot of funds that are out there that are untapped, and I hope, as a county commissioner, I can help to get some of those back here. Thank you.
Bo, do you have a?
Brown brings up a lot of great points, you know, and I think we're both on the same page that we need to do the best that we can. The key to it is that when you look at all of these boards, whether it's city council, township, all of those folks are there for a reason. They're there because they're leaders, and we need to get all the leaders together and discuss the issues, and then with one big voice, go to Bismarck and tell them we've got problems and we need help, and we need to find the right people to help us do it.
Thank you. We'll move to District 3 and start with Wayne. And it's the same question as one of the 5 county commissioners. What impact do you individually hope to have on the board?
Well, I'd like to bring new ideas and what I've heard from the public and communicate to the board the ideas that people are asking or informing me about, and then work on with the public to get some of the things accomplished that people bring up, and be open to the people, and also go to Bismarck and work with the legislature as an individual and as a group to make sure we get our proper funding, and communicate with the oil industry also and with their suggestions, and also listen to the farmers and see what everybody's got to say. The biggest thing is just be available to the public.
All right. Corey.
I think that's a great point that Wayne brings up, is being available to the public, but the interagency collaboration, I think, is one of the biggest things that we need to work with, and Bo and Brown both alluded to it, that we need to get everybody on the same page, so it's not just one voice here and one voice there. It needs to be basically Western North Dakota going and saying, this is what we need and this is how we gotta fix it. So, you know, we can't just come with a problem, we gotta also get together, find a solution, keep everybody on the same page, and then come with one big loud voice down to Bismarck, and hopefully we can get some of the oil and gas production tax, that funding may be changed or some, so we can get more money back here into Williams County.
Wayne, would you have the?
Well, we have worked with the city and with our local legislators in securing funding, and we do go as one big group when we get down there. It's Western North Dakota. It's not just with the city of Williston or Williams County. We represent everybody out here when we do go down to Bismarck. We with the legislature.
We'll move to District 5 and we'll start with Linda. The question is, again, the same. As one of 5 county commissioners, what impact do you as an individual hope to have on the board?
I don't think I need to reiterate everything that everyone else has said. One of the articles that I read just today was that there's a new information out there that Continental Resources gave to the Petroleum Council, that there are between 30 and 40 billion barrels underneath the Bakken. Not 15 billion, not 7 billion, which is what the state said we had. We're big players here. We shouldn't have to negotiate a lot. We should go there and say, we are the Bakken. So as far as communicating, yes. As far as getting all folks together and screaming, yes. But, you know, we've got opportunity here in this county, big opportunity. And I really want to look at it like that. I want us to be a force in North Dakota.
All right, and Barry.
Well, I guess with, you know, just my past experience on the board, and, you know, that making yourself available, but, you know, being a business owner, you know, the stuff that we do as a county, you know, affects me directly also. I think, given what we had to deal with over the last handful of years, I'm sure most people, or some people wouldn't agree, but I think we did a fairly decent job of keeping the hold of the reins, but, there's always room for improvement.
Okay. And Linda, you have the option to respond.
I'm fine.
Okay. We'll go to Brom. As a commissioner, there is a responsibility to make planning and zoning decisions that effectively balance the needs of the agricultural industry, oil and gas industry, and the landowners in Williams County. What is your philosophy as it relates to changes in land use throughout the county?
I think, at this point now, based on what the county commission has done to the past, and, I haven't walked in their shoes, so it's hard to say. Back in the day, it was very difficult, especially 9, 10, 11, 12, et cetera. Sometimes those decisions are very difficult to make, especially when you're drinking from a fire hose like they were at the time. The new implementations that we have with the county will help throttle that down, so when someone's bringing something up for change of land use for planning and zoning, and they wanna change something into something different, I think addressing, obviously visiting with the neighbors, getting input, I think it's a good thing as long as it's done responsibly and it's what the community wants and they're looking forward to it and it's the highest and best use of the land. As long as all the residents in the area are for it, I'm for it. Thank you.
Oh,
That's a difficult area, and one that we had to address quite a few of those, but, we have laws, and we have regulations, and we have zoning ordinances and that. So we have to look to see what the law says, what does the ordinance says, and thankfully, we have people that can separate those out and tell us what we do. But we also have to take into account what does the community think, what does the community say? But most importantly, I think if you look at what's the county plan, what is our long-term plan, what's our long-term goals, where's the city going to grow, where's the population going to be, and look at all those different things in the combine when we make some of these decisions. We had lots of folks back in the day that wanted to build whole cities out in the country through different ordinances, and we had to deal with those individually to make sure if they fit and if they didn't fit. And I think we did a decent job as a township when we looked at those.
Yeah, I'll reiterate what Bo said there too, and I agree, you brought up a good point. As long as it adheres to the comprehensive plan and what the county wants to do and what the residents want to do, and as long as it follows to the planning and zoning, the laws and codes that are in place that should be enforced, that maybe have gotten a little lax in the past, reinforcing those particular codes and laws, then I agree, as long as it follows the comprehensive plan and the laws that are in place. Thanks, Bill.
okay. And so it's the same question again for District 3, but Corey, the commission has the responsibility to make planning and zoning decisions, and there's a balancing act between oil and ag and landowners. What's your philosophy when it comes to changes in land use?
Well, I think one of the big things is there's been a lot of people that have put a lot of time into this as far as making the ordinances and setting the rules for how things are supposed to take place in order to change land use. And there's different areas where it's possible to change it, and it's just in areas that it's not possible to change it without a ordinance change. Now, if, as Brom said, you can talk to the landowners, you can talk to the neighbors, you talk to everybody around. If you find a general consensus and there needs to be a ordinance change, well, so be it. That's a possibility in order to do it. I think the big thing is you just gotta follow what's been set down there and go by the rules and use what's already been done and I guess just stay with it that way.
Okay, Wayne?
Well, we've developed a comprehensive plan in the county, and it's very important that we follow the comprehensive plan and stick to what should be ag and what should be commercial and what should be residential. And we have people in the planning zoning department that are very well educated on this, and they can inform us on how this will fit and give us ideas. And also, we solicit the township that whatever's gonna be developed or approved, we solicit input from the township and see what their feeling is towards the, development, or just for residential or commercial, see what, if they want it or don't want it. And also to be available to the neighbors as an individual and get feedback on the proposed project from them and pass it on.
We'll move to District 5. Barry, we'll start with you. It's again the same question. There's the balancing act that the commission has to make between the different constituencies of oil and ag and landowners. What's your philosophy when it comes to changes in land use?
Well, getting back to the comprehensive plan, let's put that in place for a very good reason, so we don't have, you know, development just, you know, willy-nilly wherever. But the biggest thing I believe is when we ask townships what are their beliefs, or what would their recommendations, because it is, you know, it is in Williams County, but it is in their township. They are the local, they're the most affected, and they are the ones that will, either, a lot of it is they're the ones that start to initiate the land use changes, whether it's viable, if we can, their neighbors, or it gets to be kind of a sticky situation sometimes, and that's when you gotta go back to our ordinances and the comprehensive plan. If it all fits, then you can make your case for it.
All right. Linda?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Certainly. As a commissioner, there's a responsibility to make planning and zoning decisions that balance the needs of the agricultural industry, oil and gas, and landowners in the county. What's your philosophy when it comes to changes in land use?
You know, I'm in an area right now that has a lot of changes going with the land use. We've had at least four to six land use changes from ag to residential. And it really does come back to the township. How is it gonna affect your neighbors? How is it gonna affect your, the residents that live there? I haven't seen a lot of consistency over the years, and I'm hoping that going forward there is. It seems like to me that if there is a comprehensive plan, and if there is ordinances that are followed, sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. So I'd be real interested to see everyone that had a land use change, how it changed. I am all for people moving out to the country, and I am all for businesses being able to move outside of the city into the county too, if it fits into that plan. But like I said, consistency hasn't been the strong point that I've seen. Thank you.
Thank you. Barry, you have 30 seconds if you'd like it. Okay. All right. Going back to District 1, Bo, this question starts with you. Apart from a $101.5 million wish list of county highway projects, 48% of Williams County's planned expenditures for 2019 are road-related projects, equipment, and staff. In your opinion, how should the county commission prioritize county road projects? And what level of collaboration should they have with townships on transportation issues within the county?
Well, first and foremost, we should be pretty proud of our township system, because if you go to neighboring states that don't have that, they struggle. Roosevelt County on the west side over there, right across the line, of course, everybody's got a lot of problems, but they have issues that could easily be helped with as far as township. So there's no doubt that we have struggles with infrastructure and struggles with roads. But my first and foremost plan would be to at least twice a year invite the township chairmans or the townships to come sit in and be part of our commission meeting, and specifically to discuss issues that can be addressed between the county and the township, ways we can work together, what do we need to do better, where are we lacking. But right now, I think it's a system that's working, but constant communication between the two is a must.
Ron?
Thank you. I would mimic a lot of Bo's comments there too. I think it's essential to visit with the townships, look at all the, sitting in these commission meetings over the past however long, we have a lot of people that come forward and to discuss road issues, whether it be in their neighborhood, on their way to work, where they go to worship, wherever it may be. And you have to prioritize. There are some that are downright dangerous and just waiting for a lawsuit to happen. And down the line, you can prioritize that way. I think it's exciting that for 2019, we actually have allocated in the budget money to actually do this, to actually start repairing some of the roads where we lacked in the past. So that's an exciting venture, and once again, I think it's just important to visit with the townships and to see, and then prioritize from there, and let's fix up some of those roads that are absolutely dangerous.
Bo?
Yeah, and just as a side note, when I talked a little bit about the collaborations between the oil industry and the townships, and we use those to every advantage as a township. And if there's more avenues as a county that we can use those, but sometimes these private businesses have the resources to do things that we cannot physically get done in months, where they can do them in sometimes days or weeks. So the collaboration between private and government industry is huge.
All right. Moving on to District 3, Wayne, we're gonna have the same essential question again. So apart from the $101.5 million wish list of highway projects, 48% of the planned expenditures in Williams County for 2019 have to do with either road projects, road equipment, or staff. In your opinion, how should the county prioritize county road projects, and what level of collaboration should there be between the county and the townships?
We do prioritize our roads. We have a long-term goal of what we want to do within the county. And this year we picked out 3 road projects where we plan on paving if we have the funding, and we should have the funding available. And we do work with the townships. We collect money during road restrictions and during the year, and that money is turned back to the townships. And they put in for money, and it's given back to them. Out of the townships that we have, only about half the townships even apply for money that's available to them. And they get this by filling out a single sheet of paper. And what happens on some of the state funding is we received funding a couple of years ago, and we had some projects that were going along smooth and we were gonna improve on them. And then the oil field went downhill and we didn't get any funding for the next 2 years. Now this time we hope to get some funding and get the projects back on again and get them completed. But when you prepare to go long-term and you get cut off, it's hard to keep things up.
Corey?
I think, obviously, when the oil took a downturn and some things down, but it can't stop from the ultimate goal. And it might push things back a little bit, but as far as having to prioritize, I mean, I've looked at some of the lists, and yeah, there is a prioritization on some of the roads. They need to be taken care of because they are getting dangerous. So if we can do that and also get with the townships, because they're the people that are living on those roads and they're driving. They're living right out there in it and they're driving on it every day. So we need to talk to them, find out how it is. And then the other thing, it was stated that not all of them apply for the money. I guess my question would be why? We need to get out and meet with them and ask them, why aren't you applying for this money? Because it's here and it's available.
Wayne, you have 30 seconds.
Well, all the townships are sent a letter and the form to apply for the money. And this last time we gave the money out, even if they applied for like 10,000, we probably gave them 25,000 because we had extra money to give out. And it takes less than a minute to fill the form out. And some of the townships have got a lot of money and didn't need the money, and some of them did apply for it. But they are notified of the funding, and it's made available to them every year.
And for District 5, we'll start with Linda. And it'll be the same essential question again. Is that 48% of the planned expenditures for 2019 in Williams County are designated for road-related projects, road-related equipment, and staff for those projects. In your opinion, how should the County Commission prioritize road projects, and what level of collaboration should there be between the township and the county on transportation issues?
Well, I would prioritize it in District 5. Our roads are horrible there. There's not a person I talk to in my district that doesn't complain about the roads. The townships I know that I'm aware of do get the money, and I don't know if they are able, if they fill out the form. But the other thing is, who talks to the staff? Where does the equipment come from? Where's all, because the road that goes right by my house, I get a berm in it every time it goes through. So who's talking to the staff? Maybe they would have some insight into what they think too. I don't know, is there communication within this? 48% is a lot of money, but I'd start with District 5, and then I would prioritize from there, because the roads are horrendous.
Barry?
Well, we have a way of prioritizing them. We are working at them, but, it takes one afternoon to ruin the road if it rains. We've got to the point now where if Dennis decides if it's too wet, we'll shut them down to 12,000 pounds. We take travel around, inspect them. It's more of an oil to market system, or a setup out there now instead of farm to market. We have to supply an all-weather, unrestricted route to these tank farms. The vehicles will take, the oil field won't stop. They gotta go. It's our responsibility to try to supply it to them. We've done 17, 19, 21, 10, 23, 8, 42, 15. Next summer we'll do 21 going north. 42 south of Epping.
Linda, you have 30 seconds.
Did you say 10?
Go east.
No. Oh.
Okay.
Good.
All right. And this will be our sixth and final question for you guys this evening. So this builds off the last question, and we'll start with Brom in this one. So beyond infrastructure, what do you think the most pressing needs of your district are?
I think the most pressing needs of District 1, not to speak to the whole county, but District 1 is what you're asking, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Other than infrastructure, obviously roads and infrastructure, which we've covered on pretty well. Emergency health and human services are always a big thing. I think school funding is a big thing. There's an awful lot of money sitting in the state. Last I heard is 4.5 or $5 billion now that's sitting there in an independent fund that no one is dispersing for some reason. Our county, our District 1, it does have a lot of rural, so I think one of the big things for us is going out and visiting with more of the farmers, which I have been in the past. A lot of them just feel like they're not being heard, they're not being listened to. And I'm not saying that the county doesn't listen to them, it just feels that way in general sometimes. Like sometimes big oil can sometimes swallow them up. I think that needs to happen, and that's my time.
All right. Oh,
So beyond infrastructure, which deals with this, but public safety I think is huge. District 1 is a very rural district. I think for years people have lived with the fact that, if I'm gonna have a heart attack, I very well could die if I live 20 miles from town. And things are getting better, but I think what we notice on a daily basis as the traffic gets thicker, there's more trucks. I mean, I don't have to lie when I tell you that the last 4 or 5 days has been pretty tough in this county. And our safety folks, the EMTs, everybody, they're doing a great job with what they have. But when I talk to folks in Grenora, I mean, they feel like they're left out in the cold. And they, no pun intended, but they call their security guard a mall cop. And he really doesn't have the right to do much other than feed information. But they would like to see law enforcement stationed in their community and live there and be part of the community. So public safety is a huge concern of mine.
all right. You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, I would agree with Bo on that too. A lot of people I did speak to in Grenora would agree with that and bring that same sentiment that they really would enjoy having a full-time deputy station up there. And I know that the current sheriff's administration and our current sheriff has been working very hard to try and make that happen for them. We have discussed that in the past week or two, or month, I should say. So I agree with that. That's definitely a big thing pressing for the Grenora area. Thank you.
Corey, we're gonna do the same question again, and that is, beyond infrastructure and roads, what do you think the most pressing needs in District 3 are? What do you think the most pressing needs in District 3 are?
Well, District 3 being entirely inside city limits, you know, it makes it a little bit different, but people we have living in District 3 are a lot of people that do work in the oil field, that farm, that ranch, so they are out in the county. Myself, I do both. I work in the oil field, I also farm east of Williston. And the public safety aspect of it with the tax that has been put on, I think that's a very important thing because we've seen our public safety get raised tenfold from where it used to be. And that's not to take away from what we used to do in public safety. It's just going with where that money's coming from and we're being able to spend it and improve the tools and things that everybody has in order to be able to help keep the public safe.
All right, Wayne.
Well, I feel emergency services is a big need, and we have made real advances in that with a new Williston Rural Fire, and most of the areas around us that had new fire departments, police stations, and they've had a lot of training and they've bought a lot of equipment with the 0.5% sales tax. And also a big thing that we have to keep in mind is we've got very good employees in Williams County. We've worked hard to get the employees we have. They're well trained. They've stuck with us through the oil field and been there, and they're reliable to us. And we have to keep our employees that we have. And another thing is the social services. We have to keep on top of that so we don't lose social services. We want to keep it local. If the state wants to fund it like they are, I don't see a problem with it, but I don't want to have them take it over completely.
Okay. Corey, you have 30 seconds if you'd like it.
No, I'm good.
All right. Barry, we'll start with you on this one. And it's, again, the same question, other than infrastructure and road needs, what do you think the most pressing needs in District 5 are?
I would agree with Wayne there on the social services end of it. We have to make sure we stay in control of that. Another part would be, I think, we need some type of mental health around this end of the state. We spend way too much time traveling the roads, delivering people to where they can get that kind of attention. The older persons, the senior centers and stuff, I think they could use more of a boost or a little better funding. Although I believe we're limited to, the state says we can have 1.5 million, I believe. And well, another public safety, and that just automatically points you right back at roads. District 5 is about 2/3 of the county. It's very rural. There's a lot of gravel roads out there that need work.
Okay. Linda.
You know, roads are just such an issue in District 5 that it's kind of hard to top that. But I think one of the resounding voices that I hear is that District 5 doesn't feel they have a voice in Williams County. And so as far as the needs go, I think that the communication needs to be a little bit clearer, and I would like more people to be involved coming to the county and voicing their concerns. And I would like to just get out there and talk to people and find out exactly what they're looking for. And I just hear it almost like an isolation, and I do think that that's a problem, other than the roads, so.
Barry, you have 30 seconds.
Good.
Okay. Okay, so that is the last question we have, so we'll start back over with Bo, and we'll do, each of you has, 1 minute that you can offer a closing statement.
Well, thanks for the opportunity and, thanks for the folks that have been part of the county commission and working every day and the employees to make this county the best that it can be. But, we've discussed tons of issues tonight and, just a snippet, but there's a lot of work to be done. And if I look at myself as Bo Anderson for county commission, it's not what Bo Anderson will try and provide for this county. It's what part did Bo Anderson work with this commission to bring the people sitting out there in those seats to bring the issues that we have, but we need those people to help us form the basis of the plan to produce results. And it's not about sitting up here and having a meeting, it's about producing results, and those results need to be the best for the county and the best for our residents here, because we've got a lot of growth issues, and that's a great problem to have. But we need to find the people to help us solve those and do the best that we can.
Rob?
Yeah, thank you again for everybody that came out and everybody listening on the radio and everybody here tonight. I'm excited to be part of this process. It's been a lot of fun to this point, continuing to be. I look forward to serving as a county commissioner for District 1. I want to just create a better platform, line of communications open between all agencies, intergovernmental, et cetera, et cetera. I want to make it easier for good investors to do business in Williams County as well. I mean, there's shoddy investors will come here, they can come here all that they want, but the real good investors can go anywhere they want in the country. I want to foster to help them come here for responsible growth that we all want. I want to be accessible and accountable to everybody in the county, not just District 1, but everybody. And I think everybody up here would agree that I hope at the end of our 4-year term, everybody would be happy with the job that everything we've accomplished in 4 years, and just be excited about the way everything's going in that direction within 4 years. So, thank you.
All right, Wayne.
I want to thank everybody for coming in, for you sponsoring this and holding it. And one thing that we really have to get involved with this session is the legislature. With the price of oil going up, there will be some money available. And it takes a complete county commission, not just a couple of commissioners, to go to Bismarck and try to get the funding. All the commissioners as a unit have to go down to Bismarck and try to get the funding. We can't just send a couple guys down there and expect them to get all the funding. And another thing is, I did mention social services. We want to keep it local. If the state wants to fund it, I don't have a problem with that. And our roads, we have to get funding for that and keep working on the roads. I know the roads we had them pretty good, and when the oil picked up again now, they've started to deteriorate, and it's a real battle to keep up with them. And as a commissioner, I do have the time to spend the time going to Bismarck and working for the county. I'm semi-retired, and I can make all the trips there is to secure funding. Thank you.
Corey?
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and everybody up here, because this has been a really interesting process, and oddly enough, I've enjoyed it. So I'm assuming we get to stay up for another hour once we're done with this one.
Absolutely.
Great.
You have to be in the
Great.
back.
Okay, all right. No, I think if people know me, I'm pretty easy to talk to. And District 3, my wife and I walk out there just about every weekend. So if you see us out on the street, don't be afraid to wave or say, hey, come on over here, I'd like to talk to you about something, because I think that's where it's got to start. And I feel as though I've got a lot of learning to do. I don't know all this stuff. I haven't been doing this for 8 years. But I'm sure willing to get up here, and I'm going to give it my best effort and learn while I'm doing it, and hopefully make good decisions for District 3 and for the Williams County Commission. Thank you.
All right, Linda?
I want to thank everybody for coming out here. I want to thank for these guys up here. This has been a very interesting process. I have really actually enjoyed it. This is just a really interesting county. We're in such an interesting place in today's world, and being proactive, communicate continuously, going to the legislature, working together as a team, working together as a county. These are all important pieces to make sure that we get what we need from the state and be able to grow in a productive way. be respectful, understand the laws, the procedures. These are all things that basically need to come together to work to benefit the whole county. And I'm very committed to this. I'm very interested in it. It's, you know, I know it's about a learning curve, about a year. I kind of figured that out once you get in. I'm really excited for it. And I love to talk. So if anybody wants to talk to me about anything, you have any suggestions, you have any complaints, you have any story to tell me, I would love to hear it. Thank you.
And Barry?
Well, thanks for coming out. It would be, actually be kind of neat if we had this kind of a turnout at all our meetings. We could probably get quite a little input. Most of the time, it's pretty quiet. I think we've done, you know, fairly well in the past, I guess, and, you know, considering what we got thrown at us. Obviously, it wasn't, probably isn't perfect. We're going to have to go to, we have to make sure we get the funding from Bismarck. That's all there is, because without that, you can't get anything fixed, nothing. I mean, you know, we talk about our roads all the time. We would just love to have perfect roads, but that $100 and some million, that's just a drop in the bucket. That's just what we want to spend this next go around. So my biggest thing would be if we can make sure we have funding for that, and social service is a big thing. We got to make sure we got, we have to maintain control over that. And I'm done.
All right. I want to thank each and every one of you again. Thank you so much for coming out and talking with us this evening. Thank you to the audience for coming out. We're going to ask the county commission candidates to step down, and we'll have the sheriff and state's attorney's office candidates come up. And then in just a minute or two, we'll get everything started over again. So, thank you guys.
everybody. If I can ask you to take your seats when we get started, this is part of our candidate forum. Thank you.
All right, we're going to get started, so I'm going to ask everyone who's in the back if you would either take your seat or if you want to continue talking, you can go talk in the hallway. But we need to get started here because we have our candidates for State's Attorney and Sheriff on the platform now. So, for those who might be joining us on the live stream or on the radio, we are having our candidate forum with the Williston Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm Jamie Kelly, I'm the managing editor of the Williston Herald. We have our candidates for County Sheriff, Lloyd Higginson and Verlin Quande. We have our candidates for State's Attorney, Marlis Wilder and Christopher Vadova. So, we're doing a similar format to the round we did with County Commission candidates, which each candidate will have 1 minute to introduce themselves. We're going to ask 5 questions per race. I've just drawn a random order, essentially a coin flip between the two of them, so who'll go first and who'll go second. Each person will get 1 minute to respond to the question. The other candidate will have 1 minute, and then the first person will have a 30-second rebuttal if they choose to use that. So we will start with Christopher Vadova for State's Attorney, and we'll ask you to do 1 minute of introduction.
All right. Thank you. My name is Christopher Vadova. I'm an Assistant State's Attorney with Williams County currently. First off, I'd like to thank Chamber of Commerce, the Wilson Regional Economic Development Corporation, the Herald, Key 660, Jamie for moderating and putting this on tonight. I am from eastern North Dakota, Findlay, North Dakota. Grew up on a small farm near there. It's a town of about 500 people. I've been a lifelong resident, did my schooling at NDSU and then UND for law. Prior to coming to Williston, I was practicing defense based out of Bismarck and practiced in a lot of western counties in the state. Dealt with a lot of the other state's attorneys that I've been prosecuting here for the past 4 years, and I think there's a lot of things that I can bring to the state's attorney position if elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Marlis.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming and for listening in, and for those who put this together, we appreciate the efforts. I'm Marlis Wilder. I'm the current State's Attorney for Williams County. I'm an honor graduate of Williston High School. My family here goes back 4 generations in Williams County. If we go across the river, my great-great-grandfather is buried at the bottom of Indian Hill, so we go 5 generations there. My roots are deep here, at least 6 feet, so that's my effort at humor for the night. My law degree I received from University of North Dakota in 1993, came back to Williston, and I've practiced here since. About 10 years in private practice before I moved over to the State's Attorney's Office in 2004, full-time. During that 10 years, I also worked part-time for both the State's Attorney's Office and some contract positions, and I also helped prosecute in city court. So basically, since 1993, I've been prosecuting in one form or another. In 2008, I was appointed as the state's attorney and have about 14 years of full-time experience in this, so I hope to bring that to the position.
And for sheriff, we'll start with Verlin.
Hi, I'm Verlin Kwandy, and I am currently the sheriff of Williams County. A little bit about myself: I was born and raised in Williams County, grew up in Alamo, went to high school in Wild Rose, graduated with 7 kids. We're a big class. Happily married for 6 years now, not too bad considering it was our 10th anniversary this year, so 60% is pretty good, I think. 3 kids, one is in the Army, Fort Hood, Texas now, one is currently in college, and the last one is in high school. Currently at a volleyball game, so hopefully that's going well for them. I started at the sheriff's office back in '98 in the corrections center, moved to patrol, moved to investigations, gained rank through that time. Took over as chief deputy in 2011, and I worked with former Sheriff Bushing from 2011 until my appointment in 2017. So I can bring a lot of experience to the table, a lot of knowledge, training. So that's a little bit about myself.
All right. And Lloyd.
Good evening. I'd like to thank Mr. Kelly, Cherry Creek Radio, and the Williston Herald for the opportunity tonight. My name is Lloyd Hoganson. I grew up in Leeds, North Dakota, which is about a 225-mile trip east of here. I attended University of North Dakota, received my Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice in 1987. Have over 30 years of public service work, 26 of those in law enforcement. In 1992, I began second employment with Williams County. I was hired by former Senator and Sheriff Stan Leeson. I worked there 6 years. Currently, I am a probation officer for the state of North Dakota for the past 18 years, stationed right here in Williston. I am married to Jill, who is here tonight, and she is a 30-year veteran of District 1 education. My daughter Molly, who just started her first year in education, and I have a grown son, Noah, who's a junior at the University of North Dakota. Thank you.
All right. Thank you again all for being here. We'll start out, we'll alternate between the sheriff's race and the state's attorney's race. So the random draw has Verlin going first in this first question for the sheriff's race. This one will sound a little familiar if you hear for the last night's forum or for the one earlier. In your opinion, what are the fundamental professional responsibilities of someone holding the position of Williams County Sheriff? And how might your approach differ from that of your opponent?
I think accountability to the citizens of Williams County is the biggest thing. I think transparency is a word that you hear a lot in law enforcement now. It's kind of a buzzword thing. You know, those things are set out for us by the Century Code as far as what's open records and stuff. So my door is always open to people if they want to come in and talk to me, talk to any of our staff. Pretty open, laid-back environment. People can come up and talk to us. As far as differing from my opponent, I'm not sure. He has probation experience, which is going to be a little bit different animal than what the sheriff's office side of it is. So as far as what that difference may be, I can't really say. But I think just the accountability to the citizens is the biggest thing that I would take away from that.
All right. Lloyd.
The biggest thing is to be a man of ethics and a manager of the Sheriff's Department, not only as employees, but feasibility to the citizens of Williams County. I guess what we look at is as far as difference from Mr. Kwandy is that in my, I believe in working as prevention and being proactive. Obviously, in today's community, we have some issues regarding addiction, mental health, mental illness, and I think it's just not a law enforcement issue. It is a community issue, and we need to be more aggressive in finding ways to prevent, educate, and try to do to diminish the problems with especially school violence and opiate abuse. Thank you.
Thank you both. For the state's attorney's race, this first question will start with Marlis. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
No, you do have 30 seconds to respond.
I just want to make sure I understood that right.
No, you,
Okay.
just getting ahead of myself.
All right, yeah, I think, in the last few years, we've been lucky enough that we've been able to make some of those connections within the community already, working with the Human Service Center. I think we have a good working relationship there. I think we have a good working relationship, with other heads of the community as well, as far as the hospitals and things like that. Mental health services are one of the things that we do badly need in this area, though I would certainly agree with that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so now to the state's attorney's race. We will start with Marlis for this. And it's a similar question. So what are the fundamental responsibilities for someone holding the office of state's attorney in Williams County? And how might your approach differ from your opponents?
Well, I think the biggest thing we need to do is support our law enforcement officers. They're putting their lives on the line every day out there. They bring their issues to us. We try to help them the best we can. There's a lot of communication back and forth. I think we've got a great relationship with all the different departments at this time, and I'd really like to hang on to that. There's a lot of growth potential in our county, and I think leadership is important to that. We need to move through. We've grown a lot, and we're going to continue to grow. The other thing, and Mr. Quandy, Sheriff Quandy, referred to this as the mental health situation here. Virtually every aspect of law enforcement is touched by our lack of mental health ability to help these people through these situations. So I guess that would be a very sincere need in our community.
All right, Christopher.
Thank you. Some of the fundamental responsibilities of the State's Attorney Office, overall, we're prosecuting crimes in Williams County. We do the mental health procedures, so that is a thing, as everyone else has touched on. We represent the county. That goes as an overarching category for our entire office, not just the head of the State's Attorney Office. So I guess what I would like to do is to work to make sure all of our attorneys are able to have those relationships with law enforcement encouraged, and to work with victims and law enforcement to make sure that we're getting the outcomes we need as far as the mental health issues and the opioid things. I think our office could do much more in public outreach and working to prevent some of these. Many people are sent to the Department of Corrections for 2-3-year sentences and get out in 2 months. And I think if we work to hopefully cut that problem off before it starts, people at the penitentiary will be there for their actual sentences on more serious victim crimes.
All right. Well, you have 30 seconds if you'd like to use it.
Again, the opioid situation goes back to our lack of mental health services here, and I think if we could nip it in the bud, so to speak, if we could get mental health services for those, I think everything would fall forward on a better plane, including the social services needs, victim issues, and corrections issues for that matter. Thank you.
All right. For the next question from the Sheriff's Office, we'll start with Lloyd. In contrast to many of the law enforcement agencies in the area, the patrol and detective divisions in the Sheriff's Office have had relatively low turnover. So Lloyd, what would you do if elected to help the staff successfully transition to new leadership and continue that?
Well, if elected, one thing that I see myself as I'm very approachable. And when you take over a staff, obviously I'm going to learn from that staff. I know I've heard rumors and concerns about, yeah, I'm going to fire half the staff of Williams County, and those things kind of disturb me. The people that know me know that I'm a man of empathy. I care about people, and I care about the job that the Sheriff's Department does now. And a lot of them are good officers. They're dedicated, and I expect to learn from them if elected, and keep continuing to be and provide a professional department.
All right. And so Verlin, the same question, but with how would you ensure that the trend of low turnover continues?
I think obviously keep doing what we're doing. We have good people that work there, we have good morale. We like to keep things as lighthearted as we can. Law enforcement's a tough job, we deal with a lot of bad things, so law enforcement has kind of a dark sense of humor for those that maybe don't know that, but it's something that we do to cope with the things that we deal with. So we try to keep things as lighthearted as we can, but we remain professional to the public. You know, we're always gonna be on scene, we're gonna be professional, courteous, but ultimately, we try to make it a fun environment. So I think with that in mind, we keep that moving forward, we keep that going, and I think things are good.
Lloyd, you have 30 seconds.
It's just important to maintain and keep the department that Mr. Kawani has possessed. I think a lot of those guys, as I said, are educated, well-trained, and not only working with the county commission, but we need to keep things like salaries, benefits attractable, so we keep the staff that we have, or they have, excuse me.
Thank you. So we'll move over to the state's attorney's office, and Christopher has the first answer on this one. So what is your philosophy on rehabilitation versus incarceration for repeat offenders?
One of the things that I've done in prosecuting here in my 4 years is that, let's say it comes to just drug possession type charges. The first few times you try to rehabilitate and try to make sure that they get treatment, that they can get out of that cycle. As they repeat offend, many times property crimes become involved, violent offenses occur. If you step away from drugs and just say violence or theft or things there, many times probation is the avenue the first time. Probation it has services to try to rehabilitate. It happens again, you might try again, but at some point, that's what the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation is for. They have facilities where there is going to be a period where someone is going to be separated from the community. They have further programming available there, and then usually there's a period of probation there at the end. So I think both have their place, but definitely as you progress in your criminal history, there's going to be a much higher need for incarceration versus just rehabilitation.
Marlis.
Thank you. Basically, I agree with Mr. Vadova on most of what he said, the rehabilitation versus the punishment issues. I work a lot in the juvenile arena, and in the juvenile arena, we do work on rehabilitation more so than the punishment. So that's kind of my forte, so to speak. I appreciate that we have at least some situations where we can work with rehabilitation versus punishment. Parole and probation is a big part of that. But the harsh reality of it is some of these people need more than a rehabilitative situation. And parole and probation finds that out very quickly for us and lets us know that. And many times these people that are on probation come back to us again, even they haven't even finished their probation. So at that point, then it turns to something different, and we have to look at the state penitentiary system or other incarceration for a punishment situation rather than rehabilitation. But we still hope that they would be rehabilitated because most of these people are coming back to our communities.
Mr. Fico, 30 seconds.
Thank you. One of the things in a recent month or two, we've had a number of people who have been sentenced to the Department of Corrections for a period of time and have been paroled out early, often a quarter of their sentence, and they come back and commit new offenses within Williams County. So you're kind of facing the same thing where it's looking like rehabilitative, but that's part of the what I mentioned earlier, that I want to focus on prevention of these things so that we can hopefully avoid some of these issues to free up space in the Department of Corrections so that those sentences actually mean something.
Go back to the sheriff's office and we'll start with Verlin. What do you see as the greatest impact on the sheriff's office related to the lack of mental health services and addiction treatment in the area?
I think the most direct impact is the amount of time that we spend man hours as far as transporting individuals. And almost everything that we deal with on any given day is gonna be impacted by some type of substance abuse issue that ends up being a mental health concern as well. So that's a really direct impact for us. Some of it is a recidivism rate that we're seeing as well that was referenced in the last state's attorney's question. Seeing the same people over and over again, and you try to have as much empathy for individuals as you can. It's tough when you deal with those same people again and again and again. So I would say that would be it.
Lloyd?
I would concur with Mr. Kwandi as far as the greatest impact is cost. Oftentimes to deal, obviously they're taken out of our community. The closest trip would be Minot. Most of the times it's Jamestown, which is 5 hours away. So you could imagine the manpower and cost it takes, you know, especially to Jamestown, that's a 13-hour trip with a person that's mentally ill. So I would agree that it's just unfortunate we don't have more mental health services right here in town. And that's what we're dealt with. So the biggest impact is, yeah, the cost and the manpower it takes to get services and get evaluations done for these people.
Yeah, and one of the personal challenges as far as our patrol guys, you know, like Mr. Higginson references the amount of time that it takes. So it's common for us to have to drive to Jamestown or even Fargo for some of these, and those get to be a lot of hours for someone to be on the road. I mean, when you look at DOT numbers and what drivers are supposed to be driving and what we have to do to make some of these transports, you know, on a cost side of it, I think the ambulance services hit probably harder than we are even. So overall, those lack of mental health services are a huge impact to our area in every facet of our public safety.
All right. So back to the state's attorney's race. We'll start with Marlis for this question. What do you think the greatest challenges facing the state's attorney's office are over the next 4 years? And what is your plan for addressing them?
I think the biggest challenge at this point is the growth. We are still addressing the growth that our community has been around for the last several years. I have made requests for additional staff in my office. Hopefully those will be met. Meanwhile, I just signed off on some charges the other day. I think we're up to 1,400 approximately so far this year. And each one of those cases might be more than one charge to actually address. So there's a lot of work to do yet to become as efficient as we can and get our work done, and not just end up pushing paper, but actually do a good job in supporting our justice system.
All right, Christopher.
Thank you. Some of the biggest issues over the next 4 years, similarly managing our caseload. Right now, I think we're all around 200 open cases at any given point. That's close to double a lot of other counties that assistant state's attorneys or prosecutors are handling. Efficiencies in staff and in our actual prosecutions. Since I've been here, I've been working on various things to help make staff and other attorneys more efficient. If we're not going to be able to have additional staff at this point, and as we come over the boom and the highest number of caseloads we've had, it's on us to basically do what we can to be as efficient, to have as good a results as we can. We want the best results on the most serious crimes, and at times it's triage, but getting back on top of that and not falling back behind like the first boom.
All right. Marlis, you have 30 seconds if you'd like to use it.
Well, I agree with Mr. Vadova. We've been putting out fires for several years. The fires are more like smoking embers at this point, but they're not out yet. And I think there's still a lot of work to do there. And the efficiencies are going to come. We just have to figure out how to make it work so that we can continue to support law enforcement and get it done properly.
All right. We'll move back to the sheriff's office, and this question is, we'll start with Lloyd. Governor Burgum has spoken extensively about moving from treating drug addiction as a criminal issue and moving to a medical issue. What, if anything, can the sheriff's office do to make that happen?
Well, it starts with prevention and education. As as part of the sheriff's department, I know Governor Burgum allotted $7 million to the Free Through Recovery, which deals with addiction, solely working with convicted felons that are in our community. So as right now, as a probation officer, we're working with about 22 individuals through the Free Through Recovery, which deals with addiction. So as far as related to the sheriff's department, I think we need to be more active as far as prevention and education, as far as dealing with the pressures and the harmful effects of drug abuse.
All right, Brother? I think we begin addressing some of that within the schools, try to get that education out there as well. You know, if those dollars are available to us, I think the best place to allocate those are gonna be within our corrections settings. Kind of a captivated audience at that point, so good opportunity for individuals to be part of programs there. And I know we've had individuals from Northwest that have reached out to us, as well as like Lacey Knut, for example, in town here. So hopefully we can bring some of those programs in, and some of the changes into the North Dakota jail standards, put those in that we are trying to get those implemented now, so we can stay one within standard and hopefully make some of those things available to those individuals that would help them make some of those better choices, I think.
Lloyd, you have 30 seconds.
In reference to prevention and education, and Mr. Coney talks about schools and in reaching out to various administrators throughout our county, you know, they're advising me that there's very little of that going on. So one thing that I would really like to see is have more of a presence of law enforcement in our schools, not only prevention and education, but also dealing with active shooter policies and those types of things, because believe it or not, we are in a more violent world we live in community, and we need to address some of those things.
For the state's attorney's office, start with Christopher. What do you see as the greatest impact the lack of mental health and addiction services are having on the state's attorney's office?
I would say probably close to 90% of our cases come from either stem from mental health issues or controlled substance issues, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or opioids, anything of that sort. That's where I go back to the prevention that I was talking about earlier. Right now, our criminal justice system is overwhelmed. You send someone to prison, they're out soon, there's not treatment available. There's some companies up and coming here that will hopefully be able to alleviate some of that, but hopefully by our office with law enforcement, talking to the commission, talking to the legislature, to say we need some of these things in Western North Dakota. Reducing those levels of crime is going to allow us to focus on the ones that aren't drug related and that are truly dangerous individuals to the community without having a controlled substance or drugs or alcohol to be part of that issue.
Miles?
One of the things, well, first of all, I would agree with Mr. Vada, what he said as far as most of the charges coming through our office have something to do with some sort of an addiction or mental health issue. One thing that I'd also like to point out is our social services situations. A lot of these parents who have addiction issues, we're removing their children and they're placed in foster care. We have that whole issue going on. Some of these parents are using the drugs around their children and exposing to them to the drugs, and we have those issues which are going to turn into medical issues and educational issues at some point. This mental health issue, it touches just about everything that I do every day when I go to work in the office, and we just need to somehow figure out how to get that addressed through legislature. I would hope would be supportive of our issues. Thank you.
All right.
In rebuttal to that, I guess, or in addition to that, I would note, and it kind of goes off what Lloyd mentioned earlier, and Sheriff Gwandi, education and stuff, but there are a lot of out-of-state people who have moved here and who have, whether it's mental health issues or drug issues, controlled substance issues. So I think reaching out to the adult population as well is going to be huge in trying to prevent these and allowing our offices to proceed with the other cases and hopefully get rid of these some other ways and help people before it is a criminal conviction.
for the sheriff's office, we'll ask Verlin this first one. How might the sheriff's office partner with other agencies in the region to achieve goals? And which agencies do you think are most appropriate as a partner?
Well, if we're talking just on a law enforcement standard, I think we have probably one of the best working relationships in the state, quite frankly. I don't know that you'd find it better anywhere else. If we're talking other entities, Northwest Human Service Centers, I think Trevor Breckadal reached out to us as well, being a part of a community coalition, or the local emergency planning coalition. We work closely with disaster emergency planning. So I think all of those facets, anyone that's willing to get involved in their community, you know, regardless of where they're coming from, whether it's even an oil field, if they want to do something to better the location, that would be great. I think we should have that open dialogue and meet and discuss some of those things and see if we can come up with maybe some solutions that we haven't thought of before.
Mike?
Well, when we're talking about the sheriff's department and doing this, obviously, as many resources we can get on board, it is important. And it starts with, the Human Service Center, the hospital, our education system. But the one thing that I would like to do, if elected, is start a countywide task force dealing with and developing that partnership to look at the areas that are affecting us the most. And again, that deals with our mental health, drug abuse, and the increase of violent crimes.
Yeah, we already have some of that in the works. We have our drug task force locally that reaches out to the schools as much as they can to do informational things. We're also working with the FBI agents that are locally within town here. Some discussion about a Safe Streets Task Force. I don't know how that's going to work out just yet. So those partnerships are already begun. It's a matter of working through some of the logistics of them and finding the efficiencies in them.
All right. Next question is for the state's attorney's office. We'll start with Marlis for this one. It's similar to one we've already asked the sheriff's candidates. Governor Burgum has talked extensively with his Recovery Reinvented initiative about changing the way drug addiction is treated, from a criminal offense to a healthcare or a medical problem. What can the state's attorney's office do to that end to help move that, remove the stigma with addiction, but also move toward the less incarceration for drug use and drug addiction?
Well, unfortunately, I don't know if there's a lot we can do. The state's attorney's office enforces the laws that are put in place by the legislature. And that's kind of where it comes to a halt, sort of a slowdown, I guess I should say. Because we have, in our prosecutorial discretion, we can adjust our negotiations, request different outcomes from the courts. We can have some control over it there, but a lot of the charges that we handle and negotiate and prosecute, we don't have a lot of options on that. Our judges are the ultimate decision makers. When they hand down a sentence, it goes then to the Department of Corrections or to our local services. And at that point, the Department of Corrections is in charge of it, and we don't have a lot of control over that. That would come through our state legislature. So it's kind of an unfortunate situation, but we work around that the best we can.
Christopher?
Thank you. I would agree, as prosecutors for the state, we are bound to enforce North Dakota's laws and to prosecute them. But to what I was saying earlier, I think we can go beyond just prosecuting and reach out to other organizations and reach out to the public to try to educate the public at large, to help people avoid even getting to that point where they are in the Recovery Reinvented or in probation or anything like that. I think we can work to help the community. There are numerous businesses I mentioned, counseling sessions around Williston and in the area that are up and coming. We have lots of people who are seeing needs in the community and working to address them. So I would hope to work with them to try to cut some of these off before we get to this point. And in the meantime, we're trying to work through our system to help rehabilitate who can be rehabilitated, and to, as we touched on earlier with the repeat offenders, incarceration is going to be necessary at some point.
All right, Marlis?
The rehabilitative side of this is very difficult to address when we don't have the mental health services. I am on a couple of different boards where we do exactly that. We used to have a juvenile drug court here. I would love to see a DUI court here. I would love to see a drug court here to address some of these issues, but you have to have, each one of those starts with the mental health services being available. That's why our juvenile court folded, because we didn't have an adolescent mental health provider here that could address the addiction issues. So it's got to start at the ground level.
And this will be the last question for the evening. We'll start with Lloyd for the sheriff's office. What plans would you like to see put in place to address the opioid crisis in both Williams County and in North Dakota at large?
Well, I think I've already voiced my intentions and concerns that we need to start at a young age, and we need to educate and prevent and have law enforcement active in our schools to talk about the dangers of drug abuse, and then that would lead over to going out to our communities within the county and increasing those type of publications and address what's going on and what's needed.
Yeah, that's obviously not a unique problem here. So I think we do some networking, talk to other locations that are dealing with these same things, see maybe what those communities have done that have been more effective. I think create the networking and open up that dialogue. As far as education, yeah, I would agree with that. And we do have, a deputy that's a liaison to our schools. Geographic locations of those schools make it challenging to put law enforcement there, with a substantial presence. So we do the best we can with what we have right now. We do have another officer that's went through our school resource training. We're looking to make that a better area for our office. We're in the works of that already. So the networking, I think, is the most important, and reach out for those other ideas.
According to CDC, there were 77 opiate overdoses in 2017 throughout North Dakota, and I believe half a dozen of those are right here in this community. We simply need to, and if we need to ask for state assistance, we just need more services, and that starts at the Northwest Human Service Center. We need to reach out to private providers here in our area, because I see it every day, and Mr. Kawani sees it every day, that it's an epidemic and it's bad.
All right. We'll go to Christopher for the state's attorney's office for this one, and we'll ask the same question again. What plans would you like to see put in place to address the opioid epidemic in both Williams County and in North Dakota at large?
I think it goes back to the earlier forum with the county commissioners and last night's with the legislators from Wilson, Williams County, the area who are going to the state for the budgets. I think government is going to be one form of addressing this. Northwest Human Services could be bulked up to deal with, helping deal with these things, help prevent, help people who are struggling before they get to criminal charges. I think, as I mentioned, private citizens who are going to be stepping forward, but I think our office, as both sheriff's candidates have indicated as well, we need to network with everyone we can to get those types of services to Western North Dakota so that we can address these things more effectively and actually put an end to them instead of just putting them on probation and hoping they can get whatever services they might be able to scrounge by in Wilson or Wofford City or anywhere around this side of the state.
All right, Marlis.
Well, in addition to what Mr. Vadova has pointed out, I think those are all good points, but I think I would really like to see support for a drug court here, perhaps a DUI court, and reinstatement of our juvenile drug court, which I very much enjoyed working on. When we talk about education in the schools and such, this starts with our children. You're not necessarily 30 years old when you become some sort of an addict. This comes up through the system. If we can catch it earlier, as we were doing with our juvenile drug court, that was awesome, and I would like to see that reinstated. Again, it goes back to having services within the community for all the things that Mr. Vadova and I have talked about. We have to have the services here. We have to go to the state and we have to tell them that we absolutely need this, or our community isn't going to be able to improve. We do the best we can with what we have, and that's the best we can offer.
Christopher.
I agree, a DUI court would be wonderful, a drug court would be wonderful, but as Marla said earlier too, we're gonna need mental health things, and between the government and private individuals stepping up, hopefully that's something that we can get many of those things addressed, and hopefully get to a point where we don't even need the DUI in the drug court, because there are enough services available outside that people can get help before they enter the criminal justice system.
All right. So each of you will have 1 minute to offer a closing statement. We'll start with Lloyd, and we'll go the other direction that we went before.
Jamie, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity this evening. I hope it was informative as we engage in what's needed here in Williams County. This is a great place to live. It's a great place to raise kids. Obviously, there's some issues within our county that are quite serious, such as mental health, drug abuse, and violence. But we need to work together as a community, coming together and address those issues. I don't believe it's just a law enforcement issue. It's a community issue. And we live in a great community and with great people, and the more people we have is the greater resource we have. So we need to keep it safe. We need to diversify our methods to deal with criminal thinking and those that have mental illness and drug addictions. And we can't simply jail them. We need to get them treatment. So this is an opportunity for change. And I believe we need to educate, prevent, and be proactive. And I believe as sheriff I can accomplish this and feel that I have the great communication skills, training, and experience to achieve the opportunity for change.
All right. Robert.
I just want to thank everybody that was involved in putting this together, everybody that's tuned in tonight, especially friends and family and coworkers that came out to support me. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I guess I'd like to end this with kind of an analogy. This essentially to me has been what I would think of as a job interview. I haven't done one of those in quite a few years. I've been with the sheriff's office for 20, but ultimately when you do a job interview, you want to hire the best person for the job. I think that's the ultimate goal from anyone, and I think that's what the members of the community want, and members of Williams County. So as far as experience and training and things go, I have over 2,000 hours of law enforcement training. All of my time has been with the sheriff's office. Attended over 400 hours of nothing but leadership training in and of itself. And quite frankly, not to disparage Lloyd in any way, parole and probation and sheriff's office are different. I've got much more experience in law enforcement as far as the sheriff's office side and how those operations go, including the jail. So, thank you.
All right. Alice.
Thank you. Very concisely, there's no substitute for experience. And I have that experience. I've done substantial murder trials and other major crime prosecutions, Supreme Court arguments. I've worked in the juvenile court. We've covered a lot of this already through the other questions, and particularly mental health issues. Our office has grown from myself and 3 support staff when I took it over. We are now up to 13 full-time, plus we have one that works 3/4 time employee, an attorney. That includes 5 full-time attorneys, so we went from 1 to 5 and 3/4 on that. There's been a lot of expansion, a lot of internal growth. We have to shift duties. It's a continuous process. You have to be flexible, and you have to know what options are available. I have leadership in other various boards and committees statewide. local things that I've been involved in, and the time that I have worked since 1993 as a prosecutor in one form or another, I believe gives me that experience. And thank you for putting this on, and thank you for those who listened and showed up tonight.
Christopher.
Thank you, and thank you again for putting this on. I guess I would say experience as an attorney is a good thing, and Marlis has brought us through the boom, and we have survived through astonishing case numbers for many years. But I think we need leadership. That is a big thing. Efficiency. I think we need to prepare for the future. Many of the things that were brought up, like the DUI, the drug court, all of those things, our case numbers have dropped a bit from 2015, and we have had time and we've had conversations, and I think someone needs to actually take those steps and reach out to other organizations, whether it be private or governmental, and pursue some of those things and not be as isolated in prosecuting as we have been, and to be transparent to both the public, work better with law enforcement, but overall take steps to reduce the crime level we have for mental health and drug opioid type cases, and focus on other more serious crimes. Thank you all.
All right, well, I'd like to thank all four of you again for coming out and answering our questions this evening. I'd like to thank all of the candidates who have been here on Monday and tonight. Again, this has been sponsored by the Williston Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm Jamie Kelly with the Williston Herald. We have a live stream of this in addition to it being broadcast on Keys Radio 660. There is a live stream on willistonherald.com. That video will be archived there, so if you have any questions, if you want to refresh your memory in any way, you can check that out. If you have any questions about voting, about who you vote for, you can go to williamsnd.com, and there are a lot of election resources on there. And one thing I'd like to say is these local elections matter tremendously. We've had a fantastic turnout over the last several days. These local elections have an enormous impact on the quality of life in the community. I would urge everyone who's listening to this, everyone who's here today, everyone who might see this on the live stream, please get out and vote on November 6th. And thank you all so much for coming out, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Just real quick, I just want to say thank you for coming out. I'd also like to give recognition to our Government Affairs Board, as well as Rachel, for all your hard work for putting this together to keep you guys informed. If you guys do have any questions regarding this, you can also visit us at wilsonchamber.com. And then if you could give us a like on Facebook, you can follow all of our events that we do to keep you guys updated and advocate for you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's not gonna stand up. No, it's okay. Oh, okay.